Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick deck tech for you here. It's mono white tokens, and this is definitely one of my favorite Pauper decks. It's definitely in the top 5, probably higher than that. And I win quite a bit with it. I'm sure you've seen many videos on it, and it doesn't lose very often. It's very strong. One of its greatest weaknesses is effects like Shrivel, Electrickery, things like that. And it mainboards cards that counters that, and also it has even more in the sideboard against that. So it's very durable against its biggest weaknesses. Um, let's just go over the deck a bit here. It's got 17 planes, uh, pretty basic there. We're playing one color, so there's no need to get fancy with the land base, but we do have 2 quicksand. These tap for a colorless. You can also tap it and sacrifice it. Target attacking creature without flying gets -1/-2. This is really good against many different creatures. It also slows down your opponent if you need to build up your team or whatever for a big alpha strike. It's really good against Ninja of the Deep Hours. Also, it can just kill really anything that's in your way, or also, you can use it on, say, a big angler and block with some other creatures that you have to help kill that angler. Next, our 1-drop. We only have one, and there's actually a lot of good 1-drop creatures, but I like the Javelineers, and I'll tell you why in a second. And the other ones, I feel more are just, they don't really fit in with the deck. Like Doom Traveler is really good. It gives you 2 bodies. But I decided to go with Javelineers. They're a 1-drop 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you put a Javelin counter on it, and then you can tap him to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. This is really good. Its favorite target is an unflipped Delver. It can also stop your opponent from even playing Delver until he deals with the Javelineers. So I really like the Javelineers. So our token makers, we got Gather the Townsfolk, 2 mana, sorcery, create 2 1/1 human creature tokens. If you have 5 or less life, you create 5. The Faithful Hour effect doesn't play out a lot, but when it does, it's really, really good. I have one video that, and you can look back and find it if you want. I have 2 Suture Priests on the battlefield, and we'll get to that later, but I end up making a Gather Townsfolk with Faithful Hour and gaining 10 life. I do that like a couple of times, actually. It's really awesome. Also, we have Raise the Alarm, 2 mana, instant, create 2 1/1 White Soldier tokens. This is good to cast at the end of your opponent's turn, and then on your turn, swing in for an Alpha Strike, maybe even a kill. It can really catch your opponent off guard. Also, we have Battle Screech, 4 mana, create 2 1/1 white birds. You can flash it back by tapping 3 untapped white creatures, which is usually pretty good. You really only have to have 1 white creature up because you make 2 and then you tap those. Also, we have Triplet Spirits. It's 6 mana, but you're almost never casting it for 6 mana. You can create 3 1/1 white spirits, but it also has a Convoke. So you can tap your white creatures, and this is including your tokens, to help cast this. So let's say if you have 6 creatures out, all white creatures, you can tap all those creatures to play Triplet Spirits. And it's really not hard to make that amount of tokens with this deck. As you can see, this creates 2, this creates 2, this creates 4. Squadron Hawk summons up extra Hawks. So it's really easy to get a lot of creatures really quickly. Next, we have some creatures here. We have Suture Priest. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's 2 mana 1/1. Whenever a creature enters a battlefield under your control, you gain a life, and whenever your opponent plays a creature, they lose a life. This is really, really good. It helps you against burn. It also stops some combos on your opponent's side of the field, and it also whittles them down very easily. If you're playing against aggro, they're killing themselves. If you're playing against any deck with Ghostly Flicker, they're killing themselves. It's really, really strong. A lot of people tend to go with Soul's Ascendant or Soul Warden. instead of Suture Priest, but I really recommend the Suture Priest. It helps get the job done for you. Also, another deck that comes to mind is Midnight Presence combo deck. They make infinite elves. Well, with this on the field, they'd kill themselves. Another creature we have is Veteran Armorer. We're only running 2. He gives all your creatures, or all your other creatures, +0/+1. This is essentially a main board tech against Electrickery, Shrivel, things like that. So for our pump spells, well, we have 1 creature left, but I'm sure you all know what Hawk does. He's a 2-drop 1/1. You play him, and you get up to 3 other Hawks from your deck, so you don't draw them. If you ever have this in your hand, you definitely want to play it as soon as you can and dig up as many Hawks as you can, because when you have 1 Hawk in your hand and you draw 1, it's really sad because it's essentially a dead draw. So for the pump spells, we have Guardian's Pledge, one of the best pump spells in Pauper, actually, at least for our deck. It's a 3-mana instant. White creatures you control get +2/+2. This is very, very strong. It gets around effects like Electrickery and Shrivel. It also gets around Evankar's Justice. It goes in for a huge Alpha Strike or an insanely awesome block. This card can easily turn games around, if not win games on its own. Then we have Remosian Rally. It's a 4-mana instant. You're rarely ever casting it for 4 mana, though. Sometimes you do, but most of the time you're paying its alternate cost. If you control planes, you can tap an untapped creature you control to cast this. So that's including creatures with Summoning Sickness, which can't attack anyway. So it's really good. Creatures you control get +1/+1. This is also tech against the Shrivel Electrickery plan, but it also can be used as a pump spell for a surprise win. So we're running 4 of those. We're only running 3 Triplet Spirits, by the way, because even though it is really super easy to get enough creatures to cast this, I think 3 is a good number, because then that gives us a little leeway room to not draw that many creatures just in case. So here we go on to the sideboard. My sideboard needs a little bit of work, but I think how it is okay. We have 1 Veteran Armor. This is just to bring in against, if you're playing against black or you're playing against red, you want to bring these in for extra Electrickery, Shrivel protection, because Shrivel and Electrickery can literally lose you the game. That 1 card can cost you the entire game, which is why we also run 2 Lumathread Fields. These are 2-mana enchantments. All creatures you control get +0/+1, or you can play it face down as a 2/2 creature for 2 mana. And sometimes you just need those extra beats, so that's pretty good. And then in response to an Electrickery or a Shrivel, you can pay the 3 to flip it over and void out that spell. It's a good way to get your opponent to waste it. Like, a lot of times when your opponent sees that you have a Veteran Armor on the field, they'll wait till they have 2 Electrickeries or 2 Shrivels and then cast it. So the surprise factor for this is pretty good. Also, we have 2 Crimson Alkalites. They're 2-mana 1/1s, protection from red. Target creature you control gains protection from red. So these are pretty good against burn, against goblins, things of that sort. This is one that I've been considering about taking out, only because I don't really board it in too often, and there's plenty of cards to change it out. You'll notice that there's no standard bearer here. I do plan to get some. They're just pretty expensive at the moment, so I'm holding off and hoping that maybe they drop in price, or with the increase of popularity of Pauper, maybe Wizards will reprint some good stuff in the new Masters set coming out. Also, we have Obsidian Alkalite. It's essentially the same thing as Crimson Alkalite, except it's with black. It's a 2-mana 1/1, protection from black. Target creature gains protection from black. Black is a very common color in Pauper, so this proves very useful. Now we have Holy Light. It's a 3-mana instant. Non-white creatures get -1/-1. This is good against elves, and honestly, it's good against stuff like goblins and mono black control. And it's not because it kills those creatures, it's because they take those creatures down to a 1/1, which makes it really good blockings for that we can perform. Because we have no problem making tokens all day. And for us to turn all them Chittering Rats, or all them Phyrexian Ragers, or all them 2/2 goblins into 1/1s, we can block and pretty much gain control of the game, because we can rebuild very easily, much easier than, say, goblins or mono black control for sure. Then we run 2 Dust to Dust. This is a 3-mana sorcery, exile 2 target artifacts. It's pretty good against stuff like Affinity mostly. This can exile their artifact lands, especially their Darksteel Citadel lands, which are indestructible. This doesn't destroy them, this exiles them. So it works well with that. Then we have a Patrician's Scorn. We have 2 of these. It's 4 mana instant, but if you cast another white spell this turn, then you can play it without casting its mana cost, which is super, super easy to do. It destroys all enchantments. Now, this does conflict a little bit with our Journey to Nowhere, which is a 2-mana enchantment, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you exile target creature until Journey to Nowhere leaves. But the price of that is fine. If you ever want to board in Patrician Scorn, then more than likely you're going to want to board out Journey to Nowhere anyway, because Patrician Scorn is good against Hexproof, for example, and if you're bringing this in against Hexproof, you're going to bring out your Journey to Nowheres. Now, and also, it's good against that new Heroic deck that's going around, so you want to bring those in against that. Beckon Apparition. This is a weird one. You don't really see this much in Pauper. It's 1-mana instant. Exile target card from a graveyard. Creature, create a 1/1 black spirit creature with flying. Now, there are a lot of alternatives to dealing with cards in graveyards in Pauper. I like this one because I get to target the card I need to target, but I also get a token, which is very useful in my deck. So this is good against pretty much any deck that runs Ghostly Flicker. And Ghostly Flicker is really popular right now, so it is really good. I do have the fairies, the fairies that you can discard and exile 2 cards from opponent's graveyard, but it doesn't create a token, and yet you do get to exile 2, but most of the time there's really only one target that you truly care about, and I think us creating that token, at least in our specific deck, is worth that cost. But in all honesty, most of the time when I sideboard, it's really against Electrickery or Shrivel, and if my opponent isn't playing either of those, like if he's not red or black, or if he's not playing Ghostly Flicker, or essentially what I'm saying is the deck as it is really strong, and you don't want to dilute it too much. But if you guys have any recommendations on cards I could bring in for the main board or the sideboard, comment down below and let me know. I really like this deck. It's really fun. I recommend you try it. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.